Welcome back. First thing first, 9th of September, the year of our Lord. Many people came to this world on this day, and there are those who are within this chamber who were born on that day. There is one on my list, particularly. That is the Honorable Maureen Hindambwende. Congratulations, happy birthday. Honorable members, after my announcement on the composition of the various parliamentary standing committees on the 8th July 2020, the Honorable Matthias Buntu of the Republican Party of Namibia indicated his party's withdrawal from the announced committees. This communication was forwarded to the Office of the Secretary of the National Assembly in writing. My office took note of that communication. Secondly, I have also been informed by the All-Party People's Party, APP, that they have nominated the following members to serve on various parliamentary committees of the 7th Parliament of Namibia, Standing Committee on Public Accounts, the Honorable Erastus Shumbwa, the second Standing Committee on Constitutional and Legal Affairs, the Honorable Ignatius Chihuameni, Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs and Defense and Security, the Honorable Ignatius Chihuameni, Standing Committee on Economics and Public Administration, the Honorable Erastus Shumbwa, Standing Committee on Natural Resources, the Honorable Erastus Shumbwa, and the Standing Committee on Human Resources and Community Development, the Honorable Erastus Shumbwa, and Standing Committee on Gender Equality, Social Development and Family Affairs, the Honorable Ignatius Chihuameni. And lastly, the Standing Committee on Information, Communication and Technology and Innovation, the Honorable Ignatius Chihuameni. That concludes the requests from APP. We move on. Any petitions? Reports of standing and select committees? Other reports and papers? Notices of questions? Yes, Honorable Kandenge.
Yes, Honorable Speaker, I hereby give notice that on Thursday, 17 September 2020, that I will ask the Minister of Urban and Rural Development the following questions. That who is the real owner of Earth 1755 in Okahanja? This question is derived from the premise that every year during the Red Flag Day in August for the past 3 to 4 years, there is always a war that erupts between two parties that claim ownership of that land. The one being the Ovaherero Traditional Authority and the other one the Maharero Royal House. All the transactions regarding this earth are in your ministry as the Okahanja municipality resort under your office. However, when will the issue of the ownership of this earth be finalized? Documentary proof does exist that the earth now belongs to the Ovaherero Traditional Authority, yet yourself, so we are informed, gave authorization to the other group to make use of the earth during last month's commemoration, which did not take place because the other group, the OTA, decided that it is their earth and no one will use it without their consent. One will want to know the following from the Honorable Minister. Why did you give that authorization to the Maharero Royal House to use the earth without the consent of the OTA, the rightful owners? The issue regarding this earth and a commotion that erupts every year between the two parties are well known to yourself and your predecessors, including to the police in Okahanja. What is your ministry plan to address this issue once and for all so that next year the same scenario does not play itself in Okahanja? Don't you think that conflict between two parties that take place every year in Okahanja during August is counterproductive towards peace and stability? Who has the sales agreement to the said earth, and why is the one having the sales agreement not respected and his right to the said property? Honorable Speaker, I will further ask the Minister the following with regard to Alan. Alan stands for the Association of Local Authorities of Namibia. Since I'm coming fresh from the city of Windhoek as a councillor, the issue of the recognition of Alan has been raised numerous times, even with your predecessors. There was a position paper created on how the local authority should be reorganized, restructured, re-engineered in order to serve the Namibian people better. This document has been collecting dust at your table and in your office for the past 10 years or so without any action or implementation. The condition of service of many local authority councillors leave much to be desired. They are overworked and underpaid. It is regrettable that many of these local authority councillors have an oversight over millions-dollar projects that passes through their hands, yet they are treated as a nuisance and nothing more. My question to the Honourable Minister, therefore, is that what is the work of the regional councillor in a city like Windhoek? They are well looked after, they have pensions and retirement packages, while the bulk of the work is done by the city of Windhoek local authority councillors. When will your ministry address this issue and bring a proposal to this August House to do away with regional councillor or councillors in major cities like Windhoek, Swakopmund, Walvisbay, Rundu, and Oshakati, as in my opinion they are just duplicating functions of the municipalities, and for the better half of their terms, they are really not doing anything to alleviate the suffering of their people. How long will your ministry continue to regard, and this is very important, local authority councillors as part-time councillors? While many countries, including our neighbor South Africa, have moved on and have made their councillor full-time employees, how can councillors in the city of Windhoek preside and approve a budget of 6 billion annually and yet still be regarded as part-time councillors? Finally, when will the position paper on Alan be implemented, and Alan being recognized as a representative of local authorities in Namibia? Is it good and proper, even in legal terms, for local authority in this country to continue to pay annual membership fees as they do to an unrecognized body by government? I so move, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Next, the Honorable Martin. Yes. Now I've got another name here. That's fine. You have the floor.
Yes. Honorable Speaker, I hereby give notice that on Thursday, the 17th September 2020, I shall ask the Minister of Work and Transport.
Can you wait for the mic? Yeah. I don't know why it's taking so long. Yeah. You know, we are experimenting. Oh, yeah, here you are. You are on.
Oh, thank you. Honorable Speaker, I hereby giving notice that on Thursday, the 17th September 2020, I shall ask the Minister of Work and Transport, Honorable John Mutorwa, the following. Are there speed cameras on our national roads operational? If so, who is operating them? Number 2, do they serve the purpose of which they were installed for, or is it just money wasted? Number 3, can you confirm, Minister, that the software of these cameras is outdated? If so, was there a proper research done before it was installed? Number 5, What is the future plan of the non-operational speed cameras installed on our national roads? I so submit. The second question, I here give notice that on Thursday, the 17th September 2020, I shall ask the Minister of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform, Honorable Kalesh Twain, the following question. COVID-19 has taught us to be self-dependent, especially on food production. The northern regions are blessed with water and fertile land. For instance, Wangwena region has underground water. The Minister of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform was quoted in the media as having saying that agriculture is the way for the economy in this country. Thus I ask, what are the intermediate plans to make sure that Namibia is self-sufficient and able to export products to other countries in order to create employment for the unemployed youth roaming in our streets? Malta, a small country in Europe, was able to produce enough potatoes and was able to donate consignment of potatoes to Namibia. Why is it that a country such as Namibia is not able to produce enough food to feed its populace? Number two, most of our northern rural areas, such as the area I visited, Kakondorokwa, Amarika, Onanjanja, and many more, are still using waters from wells and boreholes, which is unsanitary and unsafe. What measure does the ministry have in place to ensure such communities have access to potable clean water? I so submit.
Thank you. Next, Honorable Malima, you have the floor.
Honorable Speaker, I hereby give notice that on Thursday, the 17th of September 2020, I shall ask the Minister of Industrialization, Trade and SME Development, Honorable Lucia Itumbu, the following. Namibia Intellectual Business and Property Authority, BIPA, was established in terms of the Business and Intellectual Property Act, number 8 of 2016. It was established to promote, enhance, promote the efficiency and the effectiveness of registration of businesses and industrial property in Namibia, amongst many of its established functions. However, BIPA has not fulfilled the mandate. Business registration is terribly low, queues are long, the authority has not diversified enough. Therefore, I ask the following to the Minister. Number one, when will the Minister intervene to make sure that the terrible slow pace of which BIPA registration business is shortened and acceptable in a practical framework which the business is friendly? Namibia is losing out a dozen of businesses investors because of long framework that BIPA is taking to register businesses. Number two, when will BIPA diversify and establish branches amongst major towns like Swakopmund, Oshakati, Rundu, Katima Mulilo, Ketmansop, and Hobabis, to mention a few, to speed up the process of application and registration of these businesses and industrial property? Number three, why did BIPA not renew the contracts of more than 40 of its former employees who were left to go in this August 2020, while the authority is low on staff? If anything, this is just to make the approval of application and registration even more slow. I so submit.
Thank you. Next, Honorable Sebeb.
I want to ask a very urgent question to the Rear Admiral, or to the Rear Admiral Zipinehas, the Minister of Defense.
Oral question.
Huh?
That is oral question.
Yes.
Can I have the gist of it?
Yes, it's about the statement he made that during the military graduation that threatened a section of this community. It's amounting to hate speech, which is urgent, because the people want to know what is the next course.
Yes, let's have the, just
The white people
say-
of this community,
yeah,
because he made serious statements bordering on hate crime. And it's a question that he must answer while he is here. Because we wrote to him a letter and he did not respond properly. We also wrote to the president.
Okay,
So I must bring it here.
is the
and ask
question,
him here.
the question is whether for him to deny or to confirm.
No, you will hear the question. I'm going to explain to you.
Yeah, can you just give us-
and his statement,
Just in a
so
short,
that he can answer.
in the summary, yes.
Yes. Now, the Minister of Defense, is the Air Marshal, Rear Admiral, you made a statement during the graduation of the military recruits, whereby you accused the white people of being greedy and that they have this white monopoly capital and that there are misguided intellectuals. So it amounts to hate speech. And the UN is very clear. Well, it amounts to the UN Convention, which Namibia has signed. And as a minister, you said you will uphold the Constitution of the Republic, including to
Okay,
protect the white people
please,
in this country.
let's have order.
And then the minister, you made that statement now. I'm asking you, because when you use a military parade to start to engineer a hate speech against a section of the community, are you still going to protect us, as you have said you are going to uphold this Constitution?
Okay,
Is that good?
let's have the minister to deal with that.
I thought there is only one defense minister. Why is Sarah and the others making noise?
Okay,
Please.
okay, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
He has white colleagues in cabinet. They are here.
Okay.
He made the same statements against them. How
Okay.
can the minister ask or deny or confirm?
Okay,
so that we are ready.
Let's
for
have the minister, let's have the
Yes,
minister to respond. Thank you.
Exactly.
Okay, thank
The
you,
rest,
thank
please
you.
Chill. We have got 4 years. Don't
Honorable
worry.
Minister, can you deal with that as brief as possible, please? Please, it's okay. Let's hear. Thank you. Let's hear the minister. Okay, let's leave it at that. Yeah, please, Minister, you have the floor.
Yes, I would just want to answer to his question to say yes. Is it on or not on? Yes, so you are still protected. You understand? You wanted to know whether you are still protected. Yes, you are still protected. The Constitution is still protected. Yes. Come again? Okay. I'm trying to bend down.
Let's hear each other.
Yes.
Please, let's hear each other. Can we just, for a moment, let's allow the minister to respond?
Yes, first
And we leave
of
it
all,
at
you are
that.
still protected, the Constitution is protected. But what I want you to understand is that the race question has always been there, will be there, it will never go away. So at one point or another, it's a topical issue all over the world.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's leave it at that. Let's leave it at that. Okay. Honorable Jennifer Van Heerden. Yeah, please. Yeah. Order. Honorable Van Heerden, please. Order, please. Let's have order, please.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I would like to ask, in accordance with the standing rules, an urgent oral question to the Minister of Urban and Rural Development. Honourable Erasmus.
Yes, please.
Honourable Minister, there are countless complaints from all over the country regarding the sluggish process of registration for the supplementary voters registration. There's an instance at a polling station in the north where only 36 people could register between 7 o'clock and 12 o'clock midnight. This means half an hour per person. There's also another instance where only four people managed to register within a space of 7 hours at the polling station at Theo Kaichimune Primary School in Katatura. My questions to the Minister is, does he knows about this situation? What are ECN going to do? Is there any other measures in place? Because all the machines are also just malfunctioning and they are not working at all. Should the ECN perhaps not consider an extension on the registration process for another 2 weeks, at least, because people are frustrated, they came at the polling stations and the machines are malfunctioning, it's not working, and the queues which are there, only 4 people can register per day.
Okay.
So that is my question. I so submit
The question is directed
to the Minister of Urban and Rural Development. Is it the wrong minister?
Is it the
It's supposed to be? It's not the...
the questions are directed.
There's no Minister of ECN, but it's under his ambit as Minister of Urban. Who is the Minister of ECN?
Can you hold that question in the absence of the minister?
Can I
Because
post
the
it
minister
to
is not in the chamber.
Can I ask the Prime
No, no, no.
Minister?
Yeah.
May I ask the Prime Minister then, Honourable
Yeah.
Speaker?
I'm
Now who then?
Thank you.
It's
Thank
an
you.
urgent question.
No, no.
It's an outcry
No,
there.
no, please. No, please. I'm simply saying,
Is
I'm
Erastus
simply
not
informing you, you directed your question to a particular minister. That minister is not in the house at the
here?
moment.
Is he not upstairs?
So we take note of your question, and the information will be communicated to the minister. It's a very important question that you raise. I just want to reassure you.
Thank you.
Next on my list, the Honourable Mupelongo. You have the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question is also go to Minister of Trade and Industry, but I don't think it's not.
Is that an oral question?
Huh?
Is that a written question or oral question?
It's only a question. Oral question.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Now the minister is not in the chamber. Do you want to hold? Do you want to
No,
hold?
I can ask it.
He's not in the chamber.
Where's the deputy?
No.
They don't have the deputy.
No, we move on. We move on. We move on. The question, I'll move on to the Honorable Jan van Beek.
No. I'll wait until
I'm
it comes.
sorry.
Yeah.
You might be seated.
It's not here.
You have the floor, Honorable Member. Yes, please.
Wait.
Honorable Speaker, I hereby give notice that on Thursday, 17 September 2020, I shall ask the Minister of Health and Social Services, Honorable Kalumbi Shangula, the following. TB community health workers in Namibia are regarded as essential service providers, yet all of them are contract workers of the Ministry of Health and Social Services. They have no benefits such as medical aid, pension, and other benefits that other health workers have. Most of these workers have worked for more than 10 years for the Ministry of Health and Social Services, but they remain contractual. TB community health workers put their lives at great risk to treat patients with one of the most infectious diseases known to humankind, hence themselves at a high risk of getting infected. I thus ask, number one, why are these workers not employed on a permanent basis with full benefits? Is this not a great injustice and disservice to the important work they do? Number two, can the Honourable Minister inform this August House on what decisive measure the Ministry will undertake to address the mistreatment of our TB community health workers? I so submit, Honourable
Thank you.
Speaker.
Thank you very much. We move on to the next Honorable Dr. Iyambo, please.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me convey my happy birthday to my sister, Hinda Mwende. I have a quick oral question to the Minister of Education, of which I hope actually she will extend to Cabinet. Parents are complaining countrywide. I, as a parent, is also complaining because we seem to be putting our young population at risk. Both students and teachers will be at risk because of the high rising COVID-19 cases, and there are approximately only 2.25 months effective school calendar. And so, will the country be more at risk with schools reopening, or considering the rising cases countrywide per se? Are we not putting our young population and teachers at greater risk by reopening? And not that I am just saying that, maybe we have a suggestion also. Rather than wait and let the situation be clearer, calmer, maybe we are hearing of vaccines and things like that. But anyway, our young population cannot be at a higher risk by let them mingle, because we were all children. To children, play is part of the growth. They will hug, they will kiss, they will mingle, they may not even put on their mask. And COVID-19 is a reality that we need to highly take as a high
risk.
Besides the risk, I already used that word and I thought I will use another one. But for lack of vocabulary, Swanu of Namibia being a caring and sharing party, let the cabinet think through whether really schools should reopen, or maybe let this year go by so that by January we will have a better situation of knowing about COVID-19, because we are still learning, and see how the situation will be. I so submit,
Thank you.
Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much. That is a specific question directed to the Honorable Minister of Education, Arts and Culture. Would you want to respond briefly to that question?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I will try and see where I can touch with this broad aspect of learners' return to schools. Thank you, Honorable Member, for your concern. I would start my short response by saying we don't really know how long COVID is going to stay. Secondly, we know the negative effects on long-term closure of schools, especially children from disadvantaged families. The issue of permanent dropouts from schools, the issue of child abuse when they are not, really taken care of, the issue of addiction to drugs and alcohol because of their boredom at home and all those things. That's why the Minister of Education, in consultation with our teachers union, whom we have a recognition of agreement with, we continuously discuss and do research on understanding how we can still push through with our children's education while looking forward to preparation for the next year to come. Because for us, sitting back without doing anything, it's kind of suicidal to us. The other thing that the House should take note of is that we don't take this decision without doing any research on the susceptibility of the children with regard to the COVID-19. And whatever risk we are taking is a risk that is measured against the risk of having schools closed indefinitely. So in short, Honorable Speaker, that's the only thing I can say. If the Honorable Member needs more information, he can consult me one by one, one-on-one.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's leave it at that. Next, Honorable Vanani.
Motion.
Oh, okay. So you, on my list is the Honorable Nico Smith. Oh, also, you are ready? Okay. So we have concluded the questions. We are now moving to the notices of motions. The Honorable Nico Smith.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I hereby give notice that on Tuesday, 15 September 2020, I shall move that in support of the fight against corruption, this House discusses the absence of an asset register at many government entities and the financial and economic implications thereof. I so move.
Thank you. Next, Honorable Venani.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, I hereby give notice that on Wednesday, the 16th of September 2020, that this August House debates the need to promulgate the Flexible Land Tenure Act, Act 4 of 2012. The importance of this act is that it is in place to look at plans on how to the less fortunate and previously disadvantaged Namibians and the urban poor will have access to a piece of land plot where they can build their own places to call a home. Challenges motivating these discussions of this act arises at the fact that most Namibians do not own any land, especially urban land. Majority of the spaces of land is occupied by the rich, the fortunate, and various business entities. For over 25 years, we have thousands of Namibians living and erecting shacks in informal settlements on the land that still do not belong to them as we speak. The Act should make provisions to these ordinary Namibians that such pieces of land should be on their names as sole ownership. I would like this House to discuss and make necessary interventions inter alia, also to look at how the shack dwellers federations can be given enough free havens in order to build affordable houses faster for the populace. I so submit, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you. Next, Honourable Jennifer van der Heever.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I hereby give notice that on Thursday, the 17th of September 2020, I shall move that this House discuss and debate the plight of the street kids for more safe houses and places of safety. That this motion to be referred to the relevant Parliamentary Standing Committee for further interrogation. I so move.
Thank you. Thank you. We move on. Messages from the Head of State. Ministerial statements. Yes, I'll take the Minister of Higher Education, Dr. Ita Kanji Murangi. You have the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable members, I take the floor to brief this August House and the nation at large on the effects of COVID-19 on the higher education sector and how the government of the Republic of Namibia has sought to mitigate the impact on the sector through the COVID-19 emergency support program for higher education institutions. For the past 10 months, humanity and the world have been grappling with a global viral pandemic, COVID-19, which has evolved into a health crisis. Since the outbreak of the novel coronavirus pandemic, the government of the Republic of Namibia, like other governments in the world,
has introduced strategies to curb the spread of this virus, thus protecting the Namibian nation against the impact of this virus. These strategies included the lockdown of regions to restrict human movement and contact, as well as following strict health and hygiene protocols, as well as practicing social distancing. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected global and national economies, and by extension, all facets of human existence. As far as the education sector is concerned, it is suffice to say the COVID-19 pandemic disruptions have interfered with what UNESCO terms humanity's greatest renewable resources, which is knowledge and learning. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, in our country, like in others the world over, the unexpected transitioning of the higher education sector's teaching and learning from face-to-face to e-learning was sudden but necessary. It was necessary to continue with structured teaching and learning, which are the source of our learners' and students' knowledge and hope for the future. It was necessary to save the academic year and make sure that some progression will be possible to free up space, however late, next year to allow for the admission of new intakes. In our context, the transition to e-learning highlighted various challenges which demanded swift government responses. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, as the Line Ministry, few days into the first lockdown, we engaged the public and private higher education institutions, as well as elected presidents of student representative councils of our various higher education institutions. We also engaged key student organizations such as NANSO and SUN to discuss response strategies for the higher education sector. As a result, an evidence-based approach was adopted, and the National Council for Higher Education was tasked to conduct a needs analysis with the higher education institutions on the e-learning mode. The needs assessment resulted in the following findings. And this is that many students indicated that they do not have access to laptops and computers. Also, secondly, it was found out that many students indicated that the cost of data to access platforms and educational resources is unaffordable. Thirdly, the ICT infrastructure at our higher education institutions could not cope with the volume of courses or programs and support materials to be uploaded. It was further established that public higher education institutions and larger higher education, private education institutions had some experience in open and distance learning, while smaller institutions lacked such facilities. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, it is important to note that various students' organizations also highlighted the lack of access to devices as a key challenge, and they indeed called on government to assist as well, just like the student leaders, as well as the institutions. The Ministry of Higher Education, Training and Innovation presented to Cabinet a holistic strategy to address the challenges of access and capacity of higher education institutions, in particular, helping our higher education institutions to roll out e-learning across the country. The COVID-19 Emergency Support Program to higher education was thus approved and adopted. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, to operationalize this program, a higher education COVID-19 response committee was established, consisting of NASFAF, heads of IT from public and private higher education institutions, e-learning experts, and the ministry, to identify alternatively better suited strategies for face-to-face learning for e-learning in our country. The committee engaged the Ministry of Information and Communications Technology as well as the internet service providers in the country to provide support to the education sector to allow access to the majority of our higher education students to access e-learning. In order to address the challenges of ICT infrastructure at our higher education institutions, government availed 2.4 million Namibia dollars to the Namibia University of Science and Technology to upgrade its server facility as well as to expand institutional bandwidth. In the case of the University of Namibia, the ICT infrastructure was also found to lack storage capacity to cope with online learning materials. Thus, it was also decided to support UNAM with the storage to the tune of 7 million. Once the facilities are upgraded at both the University of Namibia and NAST, it is agreed for these two institutions to accommodate e-learning platforms of other higher education institutions that may be lacking. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, the needs assessment done by NCHE also found out that close to 32,000 students have no access to laptops or computers. In light of the above, the Ministry of Finance was approached to avail additional resources as well as to grant NASFAF an exemption to procure computers, gadgets for needy students. An implementation plan for the laptops acquisition was launched. The laptops are for all needy students at local institutions of higher learning, both NASFAF beneficiaries and non-beneficiaries on a need-to-have basis. Strict procurement procedures or measures will be followed in this exercise. The global pandemic needs a strategic sectorial response and support to address the entire student population, including those that are not funded by NASFAF, for they are indeed Namibian citizens. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, in recent weeks, the media, especially social media, has been inundated with queries and discussions emanating from the planned acquisition of laptops for needy students to access virtual learning. The government of the Republic of Namibia is a responsible government, one that is caring and strategic in addressing the challenges of citizens. The higher education institutions in our country are home to multitudes of our youth who are the pride and the future of our nation. Their continued formal education is of paramount importance to the development of our country. Blended teaching that leans more towards e-learning at higher education level is the way to go, not only in Namibia, but across the world. The government's commitment is evident in the investment done towards strengthening the ICT infrastructure at NAST and UNAM. Besides facilitating teaching and learning during COVID, the investment should be taken as a fundamental step by government to position our higher education institutions at a level where they can unleash their own potential and that of their students to harness and optimize the use of new technologies, the fourth industrial revolution and innovation in advanced knowledge creation and the nation's development through homegrown solutions. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, in many occasions, the social media statements are far from the truth. They generally tend to misinform. The ministry has since resolved to engage the elected SRCs of the various higher education institutions and the newly established apolitical Namibia Student Leaders Task Force team The ministry recently engaged the elected student leaders, that is the SRC president. Through this engagement, the following emerged. The student leaders have made it abundantly clear to the line ministry that they, as elected student leaders at their various higher education institutions, prefer to remain the authentic conveyors of student problems, concerns, and challenges, first to their institution's leadership and then to government through the line ministry or NASFA. They abhor in the strongest terms any suggestion or intimation of them having any party to any current or future plan to address higher education matters in courts. They further stressed that as student leaders, they do not want their challenges, genuine challenges, to be politicized. The elected student leaders are working closely with their institutions to verify the numbers of needy students to benefit from the COVID-19 emergency support program, and they are actively participating in the COVID-19 committee set by the ministry. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, this project is to benefit both, as I said earlier, NASFA-funded students as well as privately funded students. However, NASFA-funded students will not forfeit their non-tuition fees as per their signed contracts. The government will subsidize the cost of the laptops. The students will be given two options to finance whatever is left. First option is for them to finance these laptops through a NASFA loan, which will be repayable as per NASFA financial assistance and recovery policy. And the other option will be for the student to finance the 50% through a cash payment. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, as I move towards concluding, education is key to development. The uncertainty of how long COVID-19 will continue to ravage the world is the more reason nations of the world need to work hard to strengthen their institutions, systems, and processes to effectively ensure that education is not permanently parked or put on some kind of a shelf. Namibia is proving to be the engine of novelty when it comes to COVID-19 mitigation strategies. We are indeed on the right path with the COVID-19 emergency support program to higher education, a program that is being emulated by some of our neighbors. I so submit, Honorable Speaker, and I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next, the Honorable Minister of Higher Education, Arts and Culture. You have the floor. Oh, sorry, let me pick up the question. Honorable Kawandenge.
Yes, Honorable Speaker. Wait, okay. Honorable Speaker.
Yeah.
I have listened attentively to the Honorable Minister of Higher Education on that lofty analogy of a caring government. However, on the issue of the laptops, this is what I want to address to the Honorable Minister, just for clarity's sake. I'm not really particularly minding the initiative from the ministry, but my only concern is with clause 115 of the loan agreement signed between NASA and the students. That is very important to me on a legal basis. If and when government decides, as a caring government, as you have put it, as a sympathetic government, if and when they decide to procure these laptops, do they procure them disregarding the legal provision of that contract that the students signed with NASA that state particularly very clear that the ministry cannot decide on behalf of the students what is best for the students. And when the minister talk about that they will be subsidized, let me give you figures here. What subsidization, that word, does the minister mean? If their non-tuition fees will decrease from those that have signed the contract for 21,600, with the procurement of these laptops, it will decrease to 15,600. Those that signed the contract for 17,000, it will decrease to 15,600. And then the money is not even enough to start with. You are adding another extra burden to these students when they have to repay, whether cash or through whatever means.
Okay.
So this is where I just want, but particularly, the others are just meat, but particularly I'm more interested in that clause, whether the ministry have paid attention to that clause that they cannot decide on behalf of the students without the consent of the students.
Thank you. Thank you. Minister, a quick one.
Thank you, Honorable Kawandenge. It's just unfortunate because I can tell that you were not, you said you were listening attentively, but I can tell you actually missed the very point that you were asking. In other words, you picked a lot of your background information probably from the social media. But let me inform you that I actually said it in my statement that the NASFA-funded student will not be disadvantaged in any way. They will not forfeit their non-tuition fees. That's what I said. The other thing that you referred to is the actual amount, if I may say, of the subsidization. I said it again in the statement that government will subsidize 50% and the students will have to carry the 50% of the cost of these laptops. Unless if you want me to go to the nitty-gritties of calculating here, and that I cannot do right now here. Otherwise, let's meet over a cup of tea.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let's move on. Minister of Education, Arts and Culture.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable members, I rise to give an update on the matter that has been going around, and many of us are aware, which is the unemployed qualified graduate teachers in Namibia, and what efforts the Minister of Education undertakes to address this challenge where possible. There are over 1,306 registered qualified but unemployed graduate teachers, mainly due to subject or phase specialization, which are rather supply driven rather than demand driven. To add a qualification on the number, I just received today again a message from one of the students still wanting them to be added to the names that we have already collected from the regions, meaning this could not be the only number because we are collecting the names through the regional offices. The unemployed qualified teacher graduate petitioned on the 15th of April and the 19th June respectively through the regional governors' offices and through our own ministry, demanding employment at the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture. Upon receipt of all the petitions from the unemployed teacher graduates with several demands and conditions, the ministry carefully studied their petition and tried to come up with several interventions in order to mitigate all the issues mentioned in the petitions. All the lists containing the names of unemployed teacher graduates were used, and a database was developed by costing, capturing of the qualifications and areas of specialization. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, on the 1st of June 22, a consultative meeting was held with senior members of the ministry and the Teaching Service Committee Secretariat, whereby, among other matters, the delay in the appointment of teaching posts, the filling of teaching positions, the plight of the unemployed teacher graduates was discussed. As a result, some of the resolutions from the meeting were as follows. For the Finance and Administration Department in the Ministry to explore the possibility, in consultation with the Public Service Commission, of placing unemployed qualified teacher graduates as opposed to recruitment processes of vacant entry teaching posts. And secondly, to further intensify deliberate on how to handle the issue of unemployed, intentionally deliberate on how to handle the issues of unemployed teacher graduates. The ministry shared the said cumulative lists with all 14 regional directorates of education, arts and culture, accompanied by a directive informing them that they should try by all means to fill the available vacant positions with unemployed teacher graduates in their respective regions. The ministry took a decision to appoint 60% of the invigilators for national examinations from the unemployed teacher graduates cohorts, just to at least help. A consultative meeting again, which was held on the 19th of August with teachers training institutions and on teacher demand and supply, discussed the shortage of some areas of specialization, as well as where there is an oversupply of future intake. And to further give information on the purpose of the meeting between us and the higher education institutions.
I'm aware there is a lot of echoing, and I would recommend that you use your headset. I think they might help you a bit. For the time being, we are going to do something about that, but for the time being, I would suggest that you use your headset. You don't have... Oh. Okay.
Thank you.
Please, you may continue.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I was talking about the meeting that was held between the Minister of Education and the institutions of higher learning in order to address some key issues which we observed could have been causing the overtraining of teachers. The purpose was to sensitize teacher training education institutions and stakeholders on the current challenges and possibly employ prospects to future graduates may continue to face. Discern the new areas which creates opportunities for student teachers as informed by data and the curriculum reform, and develop appreciation of the power of data statistics to support plans for national development goals. Furthermore, during an exco briefing meeting which took place on the 6th of July, the plight of the unemployed teacher graduates was a point of discussion, and it was resolved in that meeting that the ministry first undertake a fact-finding exercise on post-provisioning norms in schools to determine the real extent of overstaffing and understaffing in all the regions. This will enable the ministry to have a qualified perspective on the way forward. The above-mentioned audit exercise has thus far been concluded in all 14 regions, as informed by the directives from the Office of the Prime Minister, Secretary to Cabinet and Public Service Commission in terms of Cabinet Decision number 1/140217-003, which resulted in the issuing of the following directives, which is the Public Service Management Circular 1 of 2017. Is very important for us to understand those ones. Public Service Commission Circular 5 of 2017 and Public Service Management Circular number 11 of 2018. The above circulars directed the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture to put measures in place and implement strategies of containing the size of the wage bill and trimming the size of the ministry, which include the suspension of creation of new positions, be it permanent or temporary employment, and the filling of vacant budgeted positions. The Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture, in compliance with the above directives, issued the following internal directives: Formal Education Circular 6 of 2017, Human Resource Circular number 2 of 2017, and Addendum for Formal Education Circular 6 of 2017 and Human Resource Circular number 2 of 2017. In ensuring compliance to the ministerial directives, the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture commissioned the above-mentioned audit exercise on the post-provisioning norms at head office, regional offices and schools during June and September, which was conducted by staff members of the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, this exercise now is meant to clearly point out overstaffing and understaffing at schools for the different post designations in the teaching categories. Based on the outcome of the piloting, which was done first in two regions, a pre-auditing activity was introduced and the audit instruments were sent electronically to the remaining 12 regions to collect data from the schools and to populate the second summary instruments prior to the arrival of the audit team for actual audit exercise. The whole audit exercise started on the 13th of July and was completed on the 4th of September, excluding the two regions where piloting was done. The official policies on which the audit is based is policy documents PSM Circular 25 for 2001, which addressing the area of teacher-learner ratio per phase. And then the Education Sector Improvement Program, which addresses the issue of pre-primary classes. And then the EPSIC Formal Education Circular 4 of 2011, which addresses the issue of one life skills teacher for each school with 250 and more learners enrollment. And then the Formal Circular number 6 of 2017, which explains how the auditing of post-provisioning norms at schools should be done, and also give guidance on the handling of over and understaffed schools and uneconomical schools. Honorable Speaker, the outcome of the recently completed audit indicates that the schools are overstaffed with teachers and understaffed with head of departments and principals when compared to the approved post-provisioning norms. Each regional director was advised by the audit team to implement Form Ed Circular number 6 of 2017, which I said is explaining how auditing of post-provisioning norms at school should be done, while awaiting the directive from the executive director on the way forward. The ministry is experiencing the following challenges in the following areas, Honorable Speaker. 77% of the ministerial budget goes towards the frame of personal expenditure amounting to 10,891,734,000 Namibian dollars. The ministry is left with insufficient funding to cater for other operational activities. Number two, the outcome of the recently completed audit on post-provisioning norms at schools clearly indicates that the ministry is overstaffed with teachers and understaffed with HODs and principals. There is also an oversupply of junior primary teachers in some medium of instructions, while others are undersupplied. Most applicants prefer urban schools and not apply for schools in rural areas, as even the vacancies are advertised, even if the vacancies are advertised. After appointment, some applicants decline offers due to remoteness of some schools. In most cases, there is a mismatch between the need and the area of specialization of teachers. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, in light of the above, The stance of the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture on this issue is as follows. The issue of demand-driven training of teachers will continue to be addressed through information sharing between government and institutions of higher learning and the Namibian Students Financial Assistance Fund, NASFA. That consultation should continue. Number two, the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture will address the issue in line with Article 18 of the Namibian Constitution to give fair and equal opportunities to all citizens in the Republic of Namibia. Number three, the appointments in the public service are dealt with in line with the provision of Section 5(1) of the Public Service Act 1995, Act 13 of 1995, the Public Service Staff Rules, namely PSSRB 2/2, recruitment by advertising vacant positions, and B2 and 6, interviewing, selection, and placement. This is so because this is law, and for us to move away from it, we need to either amend the law. While consultation goes on, I'm saying we are doing this while consultation goes on with the Public Service Commission on a request to do away with the current legalized recruitment procedures, because the teachers are requiring to be placed rather than to be interviewed. The first meeting of this nature took place, as I said. Unemployed teacher graduates are encouraged to apply once the vacancies are advertised, especially in rural areas, and accept the offers once appointed. In conclusion, Honorable Speaker, it is thus advised that also proper career information be sought by prospective students before embarking upon studying in specific areas while we are trying to see how to address the current situation. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you. Honorable Venani.
I was trying to follow the intervention of the minister, but the more she's speaking, the more she's confusing me. On the one hand, she is making a claim that cannot go unchallenged, saying that the ministry is overstaffed in terms of teachers. Because if we are talking about overstaffing must translate to the student-teacher ratio. And we are talking about a student-teacher ratio in the rural areas that is hovering above 52 and above per learner. So when you are talking about overstaffing unto what? Unto the budget or unto the student-teacher ratio at schools? That's one. Two, this is the old adage that says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. At the onset, there is no skill mapping process in government. You are sending students to go to schools, telling them that education is the greatest equalizer. They go and equalize their education to seek for equalization, and then you are saying you are waiting for the Public Service Commission to assist them. We are overtraining too many teachers than the system can absorb. And I think something seriously must be done to address the question of skill mapping. Finally, Honorable Minister, you have also not gone in good faith in addressing the question of unqualified teachers. The system has also a plethora of unqualified teachers that have no qualifications, but that are in the system, and there are also bogus teachers, people that are receiving salaries of teachers in the system that are not even teaching at schools. Now, how do we address the question of certain Namibians earning salaries as teachers, but that do not actually teach at schools? And how do we address the conundrum of having a qualified teachers on the one hand that went to school to go and equalize, and the conundrum of underqualified and unqualified teachers in the system to marry the two. Because I've met the students graduate in Rundu, they travel in fact from Oshana region to come and see me in the region of Kavango to brief me about their lot. So I'm very alive to their quest for finding education. But this thing that we as leaders are saying, people must go to school, and if they go to school, we can't give them jobs, and especially in the sectors that we have told them to go and study. It's a serious pain to the young.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Minister, could you quickly respond to that?
Honourable Speaker, when we talk about the issue of staffing in schools, it's deeper than what we see with our naked eyes. I may go to one school and find it with 40 learners per grade, per class group. But then you may go to another school and you find a class group of 7 learners per class group with 17 learners per school with 4 teachers, for example. So it's a complex situation. That's why we are doing these studies. If you go to smaller schools that we call uneconomical schools, this is where the balance needs to be stricken. Because you may say this school is overstaffed, we need more teachers, this classroom is more overcrowded. But when you go to the actual calculation of teacher-learner ratio, there are a lot of things that you need to consider. So this is something that we cannot calculate and talk about at face value without going into depth and understanding what is it that we say when we are saying schools are overstaffed. It's deeper than looking into numbers when you look. The issue of sending teachers to schools, I'm responding to you, Honorable Venani. The issue of sending teachers to schools, it will not be addressed by necessarily focusing on the Minister of Education, Arts and Culture and say you are sending teachers to school. Teachers go for, students go for further studies on the information provided through career guidance and all these things. And they make their own choices. When they do their own choices, it's informed by many aspects of life. That's why we are saying this exercise now of seeing how to address the problem, for it not to reoccur, is when we engage institutions of higher learning. And for us to start and continue engaging and say, this is where we need teachers. As we are saying, we are overstaffed at lower primary. But you go upper primary, senior secondary, you are not overstaffed. If you look at some specific languages for teachers, like official language like English, you are understaffed. You know, there are many aspects that we need to look into. That's why we are saying we are only going to solve this problem if we start talking with institutions of higher learning. And skills mapping is what we are trying to do now. The issue of unqualified teachers. When we came in office from 2017, this is something that we identified. Unqualified, underqualified teachers. We identified them because that at that moment was our problem. And for your information, while we have identified them and availed money for them to be trained while we retain their positions, other students are getting on training. And for your information, it's not only government institutions that are training teachers. We have got a lot of, other institutions that are training, especially for lower primary. And this is the problem that we are sitting with. And everybody that wants to go for training, especially those that feels education is the only thing that I can do, they go off to other institutions and get training. By the time they come to you, is when you open your eyes. So, but as I'm saying, it's opening our eyes to continue engaging with institutions of higher learning, for them to be informed, for us to be demand-driven instead of being supply-driven. Because now we are supplying what we don't need, or we are supplying more in areas where we are already overstaffed. With those little contributions, Honorable Speaker, I believe
thank you.
I have touched more of.
Let's leave it at that. Honorable Minister of Justice, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I'm not rising to make a ministerial statement, but I thought I'd use this slot to respond to the honourable member's question about what should we do about people who need to register outside the restricted area. Would that be in order?
Yes, yes, please.
Just a quick response, Honourable Speaker. Two things. One is that the current regulations, which would expire on the 12th of September, make provision in Regulation 10, sub 3F, for any other circumstances. So the regulation has actually listed all the circumstances under which somebody can leave a restricted area. Currently, the restricted area is Windhoek, Rehoboth, and Okahanya. And if you want to leave the restricted area or you want to come to the area, the reasons you can do that for is medical reasons, if you're a critical, if you are in critical service and so forth. But the other discretionary requirement and provision is then under that particular regulation, and it says that when the authorized officer, in this case police, can for any other reason allow a person to leave or come into a restricted area. I had discussions with the Attorney General yesterday about this particular question, and we have agreed that in consultation with the Minister responsible for safety and security, NAMPOL and ECN, the arrangements would be made for under what circumstances people would be allowed to leave to go and register. We do want to avoid a situation where people would use this as an opportunity to leave for other reasons. So there will be very strict measures in place to ensure, but that coordination would happen between those three institutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker.
Now, we are done. Yes, please.
Will that intervention be done as soon as possible, since the registration is due on the 15th, which is next week, Tuesday? The intervention that the Honourable Minister is saying. And perhaps I'll also be interested to know what would be the evidence to show that when I'm requesting for the permit, I'm going to my constituency for registration. And maybe just to add one also that I'm interested in from the Honourable Minister is also currently I haven't encountered where our people who are in quarantine being assisted with registration of voters. What is going to take place? Are they not citizens? Are they being now discarded since they are in quarantine? They also have rights to register. What is on paper or on plain so that these people who are in quarantine can also be assisted? Because when they come out, some of them, they might find the registration over and they still want to participate.
Thank you.
In the election.
Let's get the Minister of Justice might throw light to that.
Honourable Speaker, just for the record, Honourable Speaker, the ECN is an independent body that manages elections in Namibia. So, and also, if I may, Honourable Speaker,
yes,
to
please.
The political parties, all of them have access to ECN if they have any concerns about the manner in which this particular process is being managed. I was only responding to the issue of the regulation and under what circumstances we would make allowance for people to leave for that purpose.
Thank you for that explanation. Honourable members, that essentially conclude the business of the day. Thank you very much. And I'll ask the Prime Minister to adjourn the House until tomorrow.
Yes, thank you, Honourable Speaker. I move that the House adjourns until tomorrow, 14 hours 30. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The House stands adjourned until tomorrow, the usual time, 2:30.